Now, with the cost of living crisis, haven't you heard that? It's nothing to laugh about. Inflation rose to a 40-year high of 9.1% in May. It's expected to climb even further this year with food, clothing, fuel. I mean, the list goes on. Everything is increasing. So how confident would you feel asking your boss for a pay rise? And is there a right way to do it? And is there a wrong way to do it? Joining me now is Heather Scales, MD of Heartbeat HR. And I believe you've got a few pointers for us, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us. When I say is there a right way to do it and is there a wrong way to do it, I'm guessing some people might say going on strike might be the wrong way. I mean, what are some of the mistakes people make when they ask for a pay rise? It's so nerve-wracking anyway.
Yeah, I think most of the time it's when people don't prepare. So they go into blindly to have the conversation with their manager and they haven't thought it through. In most organisations, they review their salaries annually. And I think the difficulty with inflation at the moment is the fact that, you know, in the private sector, they don't tend to look at inflation as part of the salaries. They look at performance instead. So individuals really do need to prepare for those conversations.
But it is really nerve-wracking, isn't it? I think there's an interesting cultural differences. I would argue that in Britain, it's that kind of hiding a light under a bushel. And if you go to your boss and you tell them how wonderful you are, you immediately feel really embarrassed. And so what is the right way? What is the right way to do it?
I think it's around choosing the right moment. So, you know, think about how you're performing. You know, are you doing a great job? Can you sell yourself to your manager? Hopefully, you've got a great relationship with them anyway. So it's actually going in and sitting down and explaining. As I said before about, you know, preparing. So look at your role, look at your salary, and then use some of these tools online, like Glassdoor is one that springs to mind, where you can check. You know, for someone like me, in the role that I'm carrying out in this region, whether it be London or other regions, what is the average salary I should be being paid? You go armed to the manager then. You're equipped to say, I've had a look, and this is what I believe I should be paid for the role that I'm undertaking. That would be the first thing. Now, a lot of managers are in the same position. A lot of businesses are in the same position with inflation. Everything's going up. So a lot of companies are going to be feeling the pinch as well. So it may be actually think about some different things. Could you go to the manager and say, what about some hybrid working? For individuals, let's say for argument's sake, if my manager said I could work from home 1 day a week, that could save me £20 a week. Then if you think about that over a year, that's over £1,000. So there are ways, you know, if a business comes back and says, sorry, you know, we are tight for cash as well, are there different things that we can do to support those individuals with those inflationary issues?
You make a good point, because if you're saving travel costs for a day or 2 days a week, that's as good as a pay rise. Now, one of the things you just said there that Heather, was choose your moment. What do you mean by that? And how do you choose it? Do you do you alert your manager to the fact, I don't know, by email or verbally, that you want to come in and talk about your pay? Or do you just pounce on them and take them by surprise? And when is a good moment? Do you go first thing in the morning, or is there such a raw thing as like not going before? I remember I was always told never give important information just before lunchtime, because somebody's grumbling of their stomach will, you know, drown out what you've got to say. Give me some examples of good times and a good way to get that meeting versus bad.
Well, you want your manager to be engaged. So, you know, often people say at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon may not be the best time. But hopefully individuals have regular one-to-ones with their manager. And so what I would do is say, go prepared. During that one-to-one, you're probably talking about how you're doing. You're talking about your workload and other things, and checking in how things are going. Why not then say at that point, look, this is a situation. I've done some research. I think I may be paid below the market rate. What do you feel? And then you're opening up that discussion. Most managers won't say no straight away. They'll probably say, okay, let me go and look at it. I mean, if managers do say no straight away, it's kind of, you've lost the engagement. So I would encourage managers to look at it, take it away, have a think through, look at that person's case, and then come back. And if it is a no, perhaps there may be some flexibility in hybrid working, 1 or 2 days a week. There's a saving there. What we want to try and do is encourage these people to stay, because if you just say no, what will happen is these individuals will vote with their feet. They will go elsewhere. And as we know, with the Great Resignation, there are so many roles out there. There are so many companies offering inflated salaries, offering, remote working full time. So I would encourage managers to have that conversation, an open conversation about it, and be realistic. And also the individual needs to be realistic as well.
Yes. Now, would one of the rules not be talking to your colleagues about it? Because often I'm just thinking back where before to muster up some courage, you talk to colleagues about, well, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do this and what have you. Is that a no-no?
I mean, you can, of course, talk to your colleagues, but the difficulty is with it that everyone has a different opinion and their opinion may not be right. So, one person might say, right, go in, pull in a China shop and say, I demand. Well, you're not going to get anything for that. It's back to that point. Yes, of course, consult. Yes, of course, talk through what you're going to say. But ultimately, it's you delivering it. So you've got to be comfortable with the message that you're delivering rather than someone else giving you the message, which you're on the back foot because you're saying, it just doesn't feel right. You talked earlier about people feeling uncomfortable and nervous. What if my manager says no? Yeah. Are they going to think differently about me? So I think it's be careful when you're canvassing people's views. I suppose that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, from a manager's point of view, though, wouldn't you be nervous that if you did give that pay rise to that one person, that they go back into the office or the workplace and people are like, what, did you get it? Did you? And they tell their colleagues. And then there's a deluge of people. There's a stampede through the door of other people asking for a pay rise. I mean, surely a manager would have to take that into consideration.
There's always a risk with that. But then what I would say is a manager has to look at every individual circumstance and say, okay, where is that person? How are they performing? It could be that some of these individuals' colleagues aren't performing at the level that's required. So it will be a different conversation with each individual. But what we must remember is not to discriminate against others. But the most, I suppose, when we're looking at salary increases is around performance. I was talking to an individual the other day and they said, I've just had a £2,000 increase. I wasn't expecting it. And it was all to do with, they said, well done, you've done a great job, you're really performing. And they were kind of shocked. They were really pleased, of course they were, but they were shocked. So I think, I suppose there's another message from companies. Don't wait for someone to ask you for a pay rise. Constantly look at salaries, make sure that you're paying appropriate salaries because people will leave if they feel that they're being undervalued. And of course, salary is a value. We can't get away from that. The salary and benefit package is important to people. Not always the only reason they leave businesses, but it's important.
No. Yeah, and approachability is one of them. So the third thing is, I'm guessing what you're saying is first research. Don't go in asking for some stupid amount of money because that in itself says something about you, doesn't it? If your demands are unrealistic, that's going to backfire badly because it's not just what you're asking. It's like your manager's going to be thinking, who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah. So it's making sure that you do your homework, you're prepared, you choose your attitude, and also be open to suggestions and, perhaps go with 2 or 3 suggestions. But the key is we don't want to lose good team members. And if
Absolutely.
companies
Absolutely.
say no, individuals will leave. So hybrid working is a great opportunity. People can save money. I mean, the other thing I'd say is don't go in and say, look, my bills have gone up, because everyone's bills are going up at the moment. It's just more about
the bills have gone up for everybody.
I know, that's it.
Thank you, Heather.
So it's just positioning,
thank you,
if you like, your case and making sure that everybody knows. And
thank you so much. Heather Scales there, MD of Heartbeat HR, with some tips on how to ask for a pay rise. Well worth remembering.